P and Ping. This is Ping and V. This is Annie Nolan. Ping and V have one of the aspects of our research is to try and develop a blood test that will help find small babies.
Oh.
Because we know that if babies are small, that they're at the highest risk of stillbirth, but we're not that good at finding them.
Oh.
And I think that publicly that perception's not there. I think people trust us as clinicians that we will find them when we do the measurement of the tummy or if we do an ultrasound.
Right.
But the results of the ultrasound, if we measured everyone just with the tape measure, we'll find maybe 20% of babies that are small when they're born at term.
Right.
And if we even scanned all women, we'd probably find a maximum of about 57% of babies that are small. So ultrasound's not perfect either.
So at what gestation is this then?
The big study that said 57%, they were scanning women around 36 weeks.
Okay, because that's too late for me because I had 27 weeks.
Well, they scanned people at 28 and 36.
Okay.
But so yours is a bit of a different case.
Yes.
But this is for kind of the majority of pregnancies that do go to term.
Right.
You know, because only the preterm birth rate is only about 6 to 8%.
Right.
So the majority of babies will go to term, and we know that the stillbirth rate is actually highest in the second half of pregnancy.
Right.
So of all of the babies that are stillborn, the majority are born after 35 weeks.
Really? So actually, it's not stillbirth and premi don't all
Not
really
always together. No. So there's
Right.
lots of things that can affect that do have crossover. So like placental function. You know, if a baby's placenta is not working well, then that might show up as a baby being really small early on in pregnancy, and that might be a reason why we need to deliver the baby early. So in that case, you'll have a small baby and a premature baby.
Okay, yeah.
And being small is a big risk factor for stillbirth, and that's why we deliver them, because we think, oh, you're safer out than in now.
Yes.
But when it comes to stillbirth in general, over 50% of stillbirths occur after 34 weeks.
Right.
And our ultrasound measurements and things, they're not so well defined, so we don't always find the small babies for one. As I said, we might find it up to 57% if we scan everyone, which we don't do because it's so expensive. And what makes it worse is that if you just delivered those babies, at 36, 37, 38 weeks, they would be completely fine.
Oh.
So that's why we've kind of focused at the other end. So we're Ping and V at the moment doing a whole heap of experiments. We found a whole heap of markers. Some are proteins and some are genetic transcripts. So they're genetic messengers from the placenta that leak into the maternal blood. And we collected blood from over 2,000 women at 28 and 36 weeks. And we've been focusing on the 36-week blood test.
Right.
And we've found sort of about 10 markers that are altered between small babies and those that are normal.
Right.
And so now Ping and V are running those tests in full 1,000 samples to try and figure out, well, how good could this blood test be? Can we find more than 57% of small babies if we do just a blood test at 36 weeks rather than a scan, rather than a measuring technique?
Yeah.
And this study's been going for 3 years almost. So
Because research doesn't come cheap, does it? I mean, that's like
no, absolutely not.
Part of why we're trying to raise money for Pram Jam. It's about the research,
That's
and
right.
research doesn't come cheap.
That's right. So we really want to be able to discover this blood test that could potentially identify small babies better than our current methods.
Yeah.
But to do that, we have to run thousands and thousands of experiments, and each experiment has a cost. But once we know what the test is, hopefully then we could make that available, not just in Australia but globally.
Yeah,
Because it's almost easier to do a blood test that's got a set platform than it is to teach people all over how to scan women, to have ultrasound machines all across the world. So.
And I mean, I think a lot of people maybe think, well, because Pram Jam's tied to the Mercy, the money raised is just going to, say, the neonatal ward at Mercy, and that's not true. It's going to the research, and that benefits everybody.
That's right. We hope that we could have an impact across Australia and across the world. If we could develop this would be the first sort of blood test of its kind.
How common is stillbirth? In Australia, how common is
In
stillbirth?
Australia, the rate that we quote is about 70,000, and that definition is the death of a baby after 20 weeks gestation, or 400 grams if we don't know exactly how long the pregnancy's been going. But yeah, as I said, there was this huge big study that looked at over 90,000 births in the UK, and they found of all of those births, the biggest risk factor for stillbirth a baby that was less than the 10th percentile, a small baby. And that over 50% of the stillbirths did occur after 34 weeks.
Right.
The thing about the rate of stillbirth is that it hasn't dropped in a long time. So, you know, we really have made movements in other areas when we look at sort of prevention, like SIDS is a good example.
Yes.
There's been lots of research into SIDS and lots of public health campaigns, and we've seen in Australia the rate drop.
Yeah.
We need that now for stillbirth. You know, we haven't had the same amount of research put into stillbirth. We haven't had the same amount of funding. There's not the same public awareness.
Yeah, why do you think that people, I mean, SIDS, everyone in Australia knows SIDS.
Yeah.
And pram and stillbirth aren't as well known. I mean, I don't know any of the stats. I don't know. I didn't know that having a small baby was a risk factor for stillbirth. I have no idea. I'm learning this all right now.
Yeah.
So why do you think that there's just like not the public awareness?
I think that stillbirth's really hard for people to talk about, and there's sort of the balance of educating people without scaring them.
Okay.
So, you know, as an obstetrician, you know, my job is to try and get this woman and her baby through their pregnancy safely.
Right.
But if I'm saying to a woman every single visit, oh, you know, how are your movements? I'm asking you about your movements because I'm worried that you might have a stillbirth. It's not going to engender that rapport. They'll be like, oh, she's really worried all the time and scaring me, and I want this to be, you know, there's a real focus on birth and pregnancy being a natural process, and I completely understand that. You really want to celebrate it and be excited. You would be petrified the whole 40 weeks. Likewise, when women and families do suffer a stillbirth, it is absolutely the biggest tragedy that can occur. It's horrible, and yet the people around you, they won't have met that baby. They might not know that baby's name, and it's hard for you to say, I actually had a baby that died.
Yeah.
You haven't met them, you haven't seen them, but they were real, and they were alive in me only, you know, and that's so hard for women to talk about. It's not the same as if you had a brother or a sister that died that people knew, and that you had that shared memory. For these families, the memory is the pregnancy, so it's not so available. And I think that women sometimes feel guilt. They shouldn't, because absolutely it's not their fault. But I think that some women feel guilt that that's happened and that they've lost their baby, and so that also makes it harder to talk about as well. It's just really challenging emotionally, and so I think that does make it harder to raise awareness. So that's sort of that balance of not frightening patients. You want to have a really good relationship with your healthcare providers, your midwives and your obstetricians that you work with during your pregnancy, but also trying to raise awareness so that women do feel empowered to come forward if they're concerned about anything. I always say to women, you know, every visit, how's the baby moving? Is it normal for you? I don't care how many movements, I care if it's normal for you. You're the only person who feels this baby. You're the only person who knows what's the pattern for this baby. If you tell me you're concerned, I'm concerned.
Okay.
I want you to come forward, you know. Don't sit at home worried and thinking, oh, do I look stupid if I go in and everything's okay? We don't care how many people come in that say they've got decreased movements with their babies' movements. If everything's okay, we're happy about that.
Okay.
So I think this will be great.
My obstetrician literally just said the same thing.
Yeah.
So my pet hate is when people don't want to call me because they think that they're putting me out. Like, you know.
Yes.
I think that there's maybe more awareness around premature babies and stuff because many go on to live. Like I've got 2 daughters that are 4.5, and people know them and love them and care for them and know
they can tell their story. Like you know, they'll grow up to tell their story. They'll grow up to say, I was a 27-weeker.
Right. But stillborn babies don't. Okay. That's devastating.
It is, and that's the other thing I think as a society is, you know, just not to judge people and their grieving methods, because we know that everyone's different.
And it's not, like, again, not to scare people, but it's not super uncommon.
No.
Like, I think
it's about 1 in 130, 1 in 140. Like, it's way more common than people realise. We have, you know, it's awful, it's the worst part of our job, but we have stillbirths at this hospital every year. It is not uncommon. We'll talk about it, you know, every couple of months that a woman has come in and the baby's heart isn't beating anymore. So that's what, a lot of our research, so all of the work that Ping and V are doing in here and that we've done by collecting these, thank you to all the 2,000 women who donated their blood for this study. Yeah. We're still working on that to try and develop the blood test to find small babies. So if we can find a few more small babies, we can deliver them a tiny bit earlier, potentially we can reduce stillbirth in Australia and the world. And then the other work that we've been doing has been more ultrasound based, trying to see if there's other ways to pick up babies that might be struggling on the inside. And so one of the things that we found recently is that even if babies aren't small, they can still suffer stillbirth as well. The rate's not as high as in the small babies, but for those women and those families, we don't often have a reason why that baby died. So that even compounds the tragedy further.
And the technology between, seems like the technology between preemie babies and the chance of survival has definitely improved.
There's some really exciting research. Some of that is happening in Perth, in West Australia, but also they're really leading the way, I think, in Philadelphia. I was at a conference recently where they're trying to create an artificial placenta. So
unreal.
Rather than babies sort of being born prematurely and then having to adjust to outside life and using those tiny little lungs that aren't ready to breathe yet, having to feed from, by eating rather than from the placenta, they're trying to actually create that a baby can stay attached to an artificial placenta if for some reason they have to be born ridiculously early.
So, wow, this just looks so intelligent.
Take about a month to run the 1,000. Yeah, so another...
10 days, right? 10 days? 10 days.
This is full time, and so, but we have to do that for, I think it's 6 proteins, 4 RNAs.
Yeah.
So
each step, do you then go out for dinner together?
The other thing was it took quite a long time to actually collect the samples, right? So we actually had quite a lot of cakes every time we sort of recruited another 500 women. We're like, we've hit 1,000, we've hit 1,500. So
I think I speak on behalf of every pregnant person when I say thank you.
Well, we're very hopeful, and I just hope that we can get the message out there to all families across Australia that we are really trying to find solutions to these big problems, and also to come forward if they're concerned about their pregnancies, and that research is happening, but it takes a lot of effort from people, it takes a lot of funding, and so if people feel strongly about these things, there's a way that they can give back to the community. If it's $1 for $1, whatever.
Exactly, that's right.
It will go towards some of this work, it will go towards some of the work that the neonatology department are doing.
And people don't really ever think that something like this is going to happen to them.
No,
and
never.
It's not obviously until it does.
And there's lots of problems in the world that we want to solve, right? So it is hard to, people sort of have to spread their generosity around, and we all understand that.
But this goes a long way because the research doesn't, it's not staying in this hospital, it's getting out there, it's helping so many.
So hopefully we can keep researching and keep trying to find answers to try and solve the problem of stillbirth, and to at least reduce it. Just to try and make a mark to decrease the number of babies and lives that we lose every year.